Full day on Friday. If you're a reading tutor, a writing tutor, or an ESL tutor, and you had the opportunity to be able to join us for Opportunity, the science of teaching reading for online reading, writing, and ESL tutors, then you did not leave disheartened by the information that you learned. It was just such an incredible event with incredible speakers. We had Timothy Rasinski there sharing his Fluency Development Lesson, and we had other tutors sharing just the most amazing things that they are doing to be able to help their students close the gap in the fastest way possible. Absolutely amazing. And in a few moments, you're going to get to hear two people who have actually gone through that day with us, what their reactions are. So stay tuned. We are back, and I have with me here today Sue Miller and Sharon Fraser Putin. Woo! So glad that you guys are here. Sue, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Yes, I was telling Joanne earlier, I have a career as a special education teacher, and it was kind of a career I hadn't expected. I went back to school when I was 35 after I had 4 children, and I always wanted to be a teacher. And so I went into teaching, and I started teaching second graders who couldn't read coming out of first grade. And I had to learn a lot because you didn't learn much in school about how to teach kids how to read and how to remediate kids with reading problems. And so I became my own PD person. I studied and went to trainings and and everything. And I'll tell you one comment from watching all of this about phonemic awareness. I had gone to a training because I was then given older kids to remediate in reading later on, a couple of years later in my school. And I thought, oh, I've got little kids down. I can do older kids. And I found out I knew nothing about teaching older kids how to remediate. And so I went to trainings the state was running in Pennsylvania. And I ran across these wonderful 2 ladies who were given this job as speech therapists from their IU to work with 18 to 21-year-olds who had severe reading deficits. And they couldn't emphasize enough phonemic awareness. Mm-hmm. They said, do not skip phonemic awareness, no matter how old somebody is. And it really brought it home. And they had their research. They kind of did their own little research studies about what worked and how to really close the gap and different things. But they couldn't emphasize enough, 18 to 21-year-olds. And they were speech therapists. So I think it was kind of also their background too. And so, I was telling Joanne, I've been to many a PD in my career. I've had a career as a special education teacher. I couldn't wait to get my second graders who couldn't read. They were my passion, and I learned a lot about why children don't read. Dyslexia is one of them. It's not the whole picture. I kind of developed my own system. Then I became a special education director in 2 different school districts and oversaw large populations of teachers and kids and scheduled PDs trying to help teachers learn. We had good stuff that we tried to put together. And then I retired and became an online tutor for Wilson when COVID all hit. So I didn't know how to be an online tutor. Actually, Joanne, I didn't tell you, when I started becoming an online tutor, I went to some of your first web pages and learned a lot, and had a big learning curve about how to run a business online and things like that. And I have a very small business because I'm retired, so I don't want to make it today. I never thought tutoring online would work ever. I'm like, no way. I'm a purist. You have to be with the student. But when you couldn't be with students, what are you going to do? And so I learned how to make it work online, and I keep getting better at how to do it. I keep pursuing my PD. But I just said to Joanne, of all of my career of PDs, that training that I attended on Friday was the best, bar none, I have ever attended. You had curated such a nice variety of people. You brought people who gave us hands-on stuff that we could walk away and use, which I actually used that afternoon with my one student. I teach from 2 to 3, and I'm going to be using some of the stuff that I saw for the summertime. It gave me fabulous ideas for a student who was 18 that I work with. So I just couldn't wait to thank you personally, because you did a great job. You deserve a lot of credit. You and your team deserve a lot of credit because you curated a wonderful day. And I just cannot I cannot thank you enough. I
Oh,
went back and watched. I went back and watched the whole thing because it was a long day on Friday. I don't know how you
yes.
kept your energy up, but I got on in the beginning, and then I had errands to run. I had a student I taught for an hour. I had things to do, so I kept my ear pods in as I'm going to the store. I'm listening to things, but I was so grateful I could watch it all the next day.
Yes.
And that next Saturday, I woke up and I'm going through things I missed or I wanted to watch, so I could see the whole
Good.
thing all over again. So it was wonderful. And I'm using so many of the things that you had on there. I'm using them already.
Oh,
So
that's so fantastic. I
I
love
just
it.
wanted to thank you very much. You deserve a
Oh,
lot of credit.
you
Mhm.
are welcome. You are welcome. We got Sharon in the house as well. Sharon, tell people a little bit about you for people that don't know who you are.
All right. I'm Sharon Fraser Putin, and I've been a reading tutor for about 2 years now. I spent 30 years in the classroom, teaching third through fifth grade, music as well. Music is one of my passions. And I honestly was thinking about, how I've ended up with these kind of two kingdoms in my brain. I can't leave music and I can't leave the academic teaching reading and even math. But music goes so well with reading and any
Mm-hmm.
kind of learning. I just love that melding of the left and right brain.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been tutoring reading for a couple years and working with Joanne. And I have 4 children. One is grown. She went off to college. She's in Utah. And I have twin 7-year-olds. And my son has ADHD and dyslexia, which is like after, my kids were born when I had been teaching for about 20 years, right? And suddenly when you have a special needs child of your own, everything really changes. And so I've just been gleaning and gathering information. And I just really have a heart for teaching kids to read and for I've begun to grab onto some social emotional learning tools to use with my kids
Yeah.
because it's so much about the whole child for me. And so many times I get kids um, who can't even make it through the assessment. They're so upset and they're so hurt by what's happened for them having that special need in school that we need to build their self-esteem and their self-confidence and give them
Mhm.
some hope. So I'm excited about adding that piece into my reading tutoring.
Mhm.
Yay. I love it. I love it. And Sharon and I go way back. I feel like
Yes.
you've just been a part of our community for so long. And we actually got to meet in person. We did an in-person event and you got to come with me to the International Literacy Association and see the speakers there together, which was awesome. So
That's
um
amazing.
just so amazing. And you guys, we got to see the amazing Timothy Rasinski. What were some of the takeaways that you had from Timothy, Dr. Timothy's talk that he did?
I'll go. I
Yeah.
was like, that's why I attended the event. I'm like, I want to see this guy speak. He's been a part of your reading interventionist program. And fluency, I think, is very underrated. Even as a teacher, when I was learning to teach, remediate kids, everybody notices when a child is disfluent, but not everybody knows how to teach disfluent kids how to be fluent. And so I just loved the way that he broke it down and, added those individual pieces of working with kids to develop their fluency. And, just like Sue said, I walked away with like a tool that I'm going to use that day. I am going to use more poetry and more music for that
Mm-hmm.
repeated reading is so important. But why would you repeat a story? you
Right.
know so doing the poetry. And I know, so I have a son who is almost 2. He's 21 months old, and it's so interesting to me. We have a lot of board books and he really gravitates towards those poetry books, the words with rhythm, and he does a little dance to it while I read it. He wants me to read the same thing again. And now as a reading tutor, I'm like, oh my gosh, our brains at that little, are wired for rhythm and rhyme. And that to me was my biggest takeaway from Tim Rasinski. I mean, he had so many, but really adding in that poetry and that music for kids, to get that repeated reading going.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and making it fun for them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I always say that too. His focus on fluency, but making it real fluency. When the fluency trend came in 20 years ago, and speed reading became timed reading, and I hated that as a special ed teacher. It was one of our benchmarks that we had a kid in, and IEPs had to be about fluency, and all the programs were coming out to time your kids. And I'm just like, this is not how we read. We don't speed read, we read with expression. You have to read the exclamation point. You have to read the kind of work it is. And so I really would shy away from fluency. I had to do it as part of the benchmarks and work on it, but I would also use it as a diagnostic, and because, every kid is so different, and I would use the weekly diagnostics fluency charts that we worked on with the kids, with the numbers on the side of how many, they read, to figure out, as you guys talk about, what's the core problem? One student, he didn't have high frequency words down. That's what was really messing him up. They didn't know their vowels. And then I would design my instruction for that week for that student and all the kids in general on those things. And then when I tested them again, like, are we making any progress in this? But as far as the poetry, I had a student, and I'll tell you, it is amazing to me exposing kids who struggle with school but are so intelligent to all kinds of academia, all kinds of reading. And I had a student this year, my high school student, who has really struggled, bright kid though. He has amazed me. For some reason, we were trying to find a book this summer that had poetry and things. And we were trying to find Kindle, the Kindle thing you talked about. Kindle, he had a Kindle, I had a Kindle. There's free access to a lot of stuff. So we picked the full compendium of Edgar Allan Poe. And so we talked, because I know their short stories are so, they really, pull a kid in. They're very interesting. So we did 1 or 2 short stories, and he was really familiar with them. And we got into the parts, and he wanted to read the parts and all that kind of stuff. But the compendium had all this poetry that Edgar Allan Poe did that I had no idea. And so I just happened to read it. We had a short day, and I happened to read it to him, and we got talking, and his brain lit up. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, wow, like we hit on something I would have never considered for you. But it taught me a lesson. It's like poetry, you just no idea what the student's going to love. And the the 6th grader that I teach, he just happened to mention to me one day that his teacher was reading Alice in Wonderland in class. And I didn't think a 6th grade boy who was 11 would enjoy that. He loves fishing. He loves hunting. He lives in the woods, and his eyes lit up, and I'm like, oh, bingo, there we go. I said, we're getting that book. And so the great illustrated classics, I didn't hear anybody mention this, but the great illustrated classics I have found to be fantastic for struggling readers, because there's a picture on every page, and it takes the language pretty much to like a 4th or 5th grade level. And the stories are so rich because of what they are. And I would read the stories to him so he could just enjoy the story. And his comprehension blew me away. I'm like, and his insight. And I'm like, we just forget the readers who are struggling have these wonderful brains and academia, and what that one speaker had showed about the piece of sculpture she showed and what that child wrote.
Yes.
Amazing.
Elaine
That was
Lingard. Yes.
Yes. Kids will surprise you. And so that's why I have learned to don't close my mind to what I think, and make sure I keep exposing them to all kinds of things. And this one student, he loves poetry. We do poetry all the time, and he loves it. He loves putting on an English voice or put on a different voice, but he keeps practicing it, yeah. Which I want him to keep doing the fluency. Or we do work from Wilson that has their weekly reading, and he, like my student who's 18, likes to. I said, you are you're talking about a science story. And I said, this is like National Geographic. I said, you're the announcer. They're showing the film. They're showing the South Africa, whatever animals. You're the voice. Be the voice. And so he would practice it to sound like one of the announcers. And I said, you don't know where your career is going to go. I said, and he loved it. I said, and he loved it. I said, he goes, no, I want to sound better. That's not how they would sound. And I'm like, whatever gets you practicing is good with me. So
Well, yeah, because that gets the rereading, right? When they have like a real purpose, like even if it's kind of like a made up real purpose, right? It kind of is a real purpose, right? Like if you're going to be an announcer, or it gives, and if, by rereading it different ways, it gives them the opportunity to see how those phrasings can change the meaning as well, and how important that is as well. I love his phrasing that he talked about, like putting those sight words and phrases.
Yes, that was a great idea. That was a great idea.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. And that just gives them context. It gives meaning to those glue words, right? Because they don't have a lot of meaning in and of them themselves. Now, Raz Plus was our sponsor for the event. Have you guys been using Raz Plus?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my very favorite tool. And I loved the little advertisements, and I can't wait for the foundations to come out.
I know, me too. I'm really excited about that because it's like ongoing professional development too. To just, if people aren't sure, like, how can I go about this, or how can I teach this, or how can I, that'll be fantastic. That, in addition to the fact that like Headsprout doesn't really give us a lot of freedom to be able to say, okay, they need a lesson in this, or they just need like some quick games for this, and Foundations will do that, which is really awesome. I really appreciate Learning A to Z, and Daniela ended up winning the full year subscription. Congratulations, Daniela Logan. That was awesome. We had lots of winners. I gave away more stuff than I've ever given in my entire life for this event, and so that was a lot of fun. Today I get to go through and actually send out the physical gifts that I had that people had won, so I'm excited about that. Had you been using Raz Plus at all before, Sue?
Well, the funny thing is, I don't know when Reading A to Z actually was founded, but I think they were the program that I used when I was a teacher.
Yeah.
And they've been around a while, haven't they? The initial program,
early 2000s.
Yeah, I used them when I was a teacher in schools, a special ed teacher, and I had a lot of intervention groups that I taught, and I use them every day. That's where I got all of my material from, because I could so tweak it for exactly the lesson I wanted for my students. And so I haven't used it since I've been retired and working with my other students, but I could definitely see the use of it if I would, or if I got younger students, but what we're doing now, but now watching you give the presentation, I haven't used it in a while, but it's so robust. Yeah. But I used it forever when I was a teacher. And I think it's just now gotten probably 10 times better than it was back then.
Oh my gosh, it really has. Like, because I've been with it since I don't know, I might have been with it since 2004, 2006. I don't remember the exact beginning date.
Yes.
It's been a really long time. We would actually print out those books for our students to be able to read, right? Like that was like their big thing, and they had the lesson plans and that kind of stuff. But now what I love about it, I love the kids side for online tutoring. Because I have the opportunity for them to have their own account, for them to build their avatar, and we can gamify the entire experience for them. And all of the little bits and pieces that you want to add on, you can add on in there. The vocabulary A to Z, where you can build vocabulary, and there's vocabulary games for the kids to play in between sessions. And oh my gosh, it's so robust and so amazing. There is no other product like it on the planet. And when I started having conversations with them, I would love for us to partner together, because I love your product so much, right? I'm not one of those people that you're going to wonder, why is Joanne promoting this? What is she getting out of it? I was promoting them before they ever became a sponsor, because I love them so much. And I can't imagine how anybody who does teach some of these younger kids, you're making your job so much harder without it. I soon found that out with the different books. So they're amazing. Yeah.
I have a question about the Raz Kids whole product line, because it is so robust, and I'm still kind of on the outskirts of it for now. Are there a training, or could you guys with them kind of start maybe highlighting how people use it? Because there's so many pieces, and I think sometimes I looked at it and I'm like, where do I start?
Yes. So they have webinars. They have a professional development section on their website that has webinars that shows you how to use every single feature.
That's good
It'll
to
show
know.
you like how to use the file cabinets. I attended one on that one time. Like, oh, the file cabinets. I've never really thought of using the file cabinets before. And they talk about like how do you add students into the program, and how do you share the information with parents, and which resources to use for what. And it's really incredible. They have an entire and that's found on learningatozee.com, where they have a break room, and then there is professional development. And so that's a really, really great place to go with those webinars. They're on-demand webinars, and then there are webinars that you can schedule and be a part of, so that you can even ask questions live for them. So if there's any specific area that you're like, gosh, I really want to learn more about this, and then you attend a webinar about that, and your question isn't answered during their webinar, they'll answer it for you there as you ask it. Like, you just type in your question, and then they add it to the list of questions that people have. So they're very, very supportive with all of it. We had lots of other speakers that also were in attendance. What were some of the speakers? I know we talked about Elaine Lingard with the writing that she does, and she also loves including like that poetry. What are some of the other speakers who caught your attention?
The woman who talked about her doctorate in online,
Yes,
the pedagogy
Allison
of online
Parker.
learning. She was, I couldn't wait for her to come on. But she did a fantastic job. I love research. I did my doctorate on dissertation. My dissertation is on a student's journey through dyslexia. He was a very dyslexic student that I knew, and I did my dissertation on that. So I geek out on dissertations. So I'm going to be actually going to the library and get a copy of it and ordering a copy of it through my library, because I would like to really read it in depth. But she had brought up Wizimo, which not too many people had talked about here that day. I use Wizimo a lot. And one of the things I use Wizimo most exclusively for, and it's something that during my ongoing professional development as when I was a teacher, I love this book. I don't even know where I got it from, but I love this book who talked about the concept of we tend to slow things down too much for kids who are struggling with reading, and we slow things down. And the thing we have to remember is we've got to get their brain clicking fast, and we've got to keep remembering that. And so with Wizimo, I use their flashcard function, and I like with all the high frequency words. So my one student, especially I have him the first class in the morning in 6th grade, and he's like always half asleep. And I'm like, okay, let's see how fast I just start moving. Like I click, 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 click. And he's like, sits up and he's like, I can get this. And I make sure they're words he knows, that he can be successful. And then sometime I slide something else in. And I remember working with my 2nd graders on this, and it was a game changer because they were so used to everything being given to them in slow process. And I would, and then when we like CVC words now, my student in 6th grade, he should be flying through these. And so I have something on Wizimo that I bring that workbook up and I do the flashcards and I'm like, let's go. And I start flipping through them and he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then I go back. If he missed something, I go back and we look at it, but it's making his brain work faster. And that brain plasticity that you guys talked about is part of that. And that we shouldn't constantly because when we're learning something and I'm working on mastery, we're making sure he gets it. I'm slowing it down. I'm making sure he's doing it all. But when it's something he should have cold, I go back and it's like, you should know this like this. And it really helps his brain start functioning faster. And I think that's a piece of the fluency, that you're expecting. You know this. And so I found Wizimo to be fantastic for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. How about you, Sharon? Who are some of the speakers that caught your attention?
I can't remember her name, but she was towards the end of the day talking about ESL, teaching ESL kids.
She's great.
Brenda Brooks, yes.
Yes, yeah. She was so great and talking about connections and building that schema for kids, especially when they have a different language and different cultures. I just find that to be so true. I live in Southern California, and so I have a lot of students who come up from Mexico, students from China or Korea, or a lot of Indian, and they don't have that same experience that is so assumed in the curriculum. And just that reminder to teach that explicitly, to make those connections, bring in that schema for them, because that's really where comprehension, comes in. So
Yeah,
I was really
it
impressed
really
by her.
does. It really does. I
And
know.
then the koala demonstration.
Oh,
I've been
that was
kind
great.
of on the fence about koala. I still use Zoom, but it made me really excited to bring that in. I mean, how exciting for a child, to walk into this virtual classroom that's even more, all the stuff than their regular classroom. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to try that. Especially it's free.
Yes.
It would be one thing if I knew I was going to have to pay and, I don't really know if I'm going to get a use out of that, but it's free. Why not try it? I was
Right,
excited about that.
exactly, exactly, exactly. And I've had people say, "Is it going to be free forever?" I'm like, "Well, you can't expect anything to be free forever." So,
Right.
Mhm.
like, it's a
Yeah.
business. At the end of the day, they're creating a product, but before they ever put it out there, they're creating a product that they're taking feedback from teachers to make sure it is
Yeah.
exactly what teachers want before they ever go into that next stage. And every
Mhm.
product will start off, all the good ones at least, will start off at that phase of they're kind of like in a beta phase in a way, right? Where they're researching, they're finding out what is it that people want, like how can we improve this, how can we improve that, and they're making the best possible product for people before they ever put it out on the market for people to purchase and buy. So yeah, it's actually I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely love that resource and tool that it's available to us. It does require a different mindset in our teaching and how we teach and how we get organized and all those kinds of things. And if we can get over that hump, then it's going to be an incredible resource for people to read. Oh, another person mentioned they love the idea of the readers theater. Great for struggling readers. I do love readers theater too. I've struggled with doing readers theater with one-on-one tutoring as much as I did in the classroom where I had small groups. It was a lot easier to bring in readers theater. So I don't bring it in as much now with my one-on-one, but I do the repeated readings with my students. And we talk about what it is that they're reading, the comprehension side of it too, that it's not just like reading as fast as you can, but the appropriate punctuation and all of those kinds of things. And those are all pieces to it. I have thought about, though, and played with the idea of maybe the summer of doing a karaoke camp again. So I did a karaoke intervention after school with my students. And these kids, they were in grades 3 to 6. So it was all ages, struggling with breaking up words and fluency. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like they ended up making so much gains that I was in the newspaper for it. And I was on like the local news for it, so it really had some really great games. And I'm like, "Oh, I should probably do something like that in the summer. Like it's something fun. Like we can just like
Yeah.
use the kids' favorite music that's appropriate, bring it on in because music is already like down. I'm like, how fun would that be? Like I think that could be like an incredible opportunity for kids. So my brain was sparked too with like, okay, what can I do moving forward? Because we're always wanting to get better as reading tutors. Now I know, Sharon, you ended up getting the replays to the event as well. Have you had a chance to go on in and check out all of the stuff that you have available?
A, a little bit. I mean, I did open up Kajabi, and it is, I mean, just like Sue said, it is the best PD that I have attended in many, many years because it's just so laser focused for reading teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Every single presenter, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear that. And I
Mhm.
haven't gotten a chance to listen to it all because I still have three little ones at home, and
Yeah.
I had a pretty busy tutoring day. But I'm really excited to really dive in
Yep.
and take notes and the resources that each one provided, the worksheets and things. I'm really excited to grab those.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Completely worth the money to have that as a resource ongoing.
Yeah, and those of you guys that want to catch those replays, you can still grab those replays as well. All you got to do is click the link inside of the description, and you'll be able to get your own access of those replays. Well, I am so glad. Okay, if you were to, in one sentence, share your experience with this event to somebody who did not attend it, what would you say?
I would say if you are an online tutor, it is a must PD because of the comprehensive breadth of presenters that you provided and the resources that you provided. I'm so glad I didn't miss it. And I thank you because it's one of the very best PDs in my 25-year career as a teacher.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I wanted to add, it was such a good PD and such a good day. I found myself, as I was driving in the car, turning it on and listening to bits and pieces. It was so interactive. And for a Facebook Live, I was just really impressed with how interactive everything was. Joanne was jumping in on the comments, and I just found myself fully engaged. And of course, being reading instruction and just so up my alley, I found something from every single presenter that I will use it today with my students that I have. So yeah,
that's awesome. Well, the plan is to have another one in 6 months. So so you guys have something to look forward to, of some more awesomeness coming your way with more amazing speakers and all of that great stuff. And we'll see who I get as our opening speaker for that event. You'll have to just have to stay tuned, you guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Those of you guys that are in the chat with us right now, if you were able to attend the event, we'd love to know what was your experience like as you attended the event. Please share that below. And if you want to get access to those replays, they are still available. You can click on that link and grab access to that. And thank you, Sue, and thank you, Sharon, for joining us today and sharing kind of like your reactions to the conference we had. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.